Hey YouTube, this is Alex Conley, and in today's video I'm here to answer the question, why do I avoid cooking while abroad? And before I get into this question, definitely subscribe to the channel if you're interested in content like this. I'm doing some traveling, I'm doing some remote working. I think there's going to be a good variety of content that a lot of people will really enjoy. So all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get into answering this question. Why do I avoid cooking while abroad? And this is multifaceted. The first answer and most obvious answer is that you can't assume the water is safe. And this is something that I want to educate new travelers with if they aren't familiar, is not every country has safe water coming out of the tap. So you may think that it's a good idea to cook to save money or to eat more healthy. But the first thing that you should do if you do want to cook is that you're using bottled water until you can ascertain that the local water is safe to drink and safe to cook with. Otherwise, if you can't get bottled and you don't know, avoid cooking. And this is why I avoid cooking. The first reason I avoid cooking while abroad is the water thing. A number of people you can find on YouTube and on the internet have commented or mentioned getting sick after consuming water that they thought was perfectly safe, that seemed to look normal. And the truth is that some water that looks perfectly normal has a ton of bacteria in it that could make you very ill. So the next reason I want to get into as to why I don't really cook while I'm traveling abroad, it can be just as costly or more expensive than the cost of dining out. So when you think about the cost of cooking abroad or cooking in general, you're not just buying the ingredients. In this sense, it's not just purchasing, say, a piece of chicken and some broccoli. You're probably going to need to purchase the oil, the salt, seasonings. You may, in fact, have to go as far as to purchase cooking equipment if your accommodation does not have cooking equipment. That being said, I found most accommodation that has a basic kitchenette will have some pots and pans that you can use and utensils to make some basic stuff. But keep in mind that they may not have things like salt and oil and spices. So these kinds of things can immediately raise your cost in a way that you didn't necessarily anticipate. Aside from that, if you are thinking of making specific dishes that are local to your home country, dishes that you're used to, some of these ingredients may be quite expensive. So if you're purchasing imported ingredients in many of the countries I've been to that are, I would use the term developing, these ingredients actually can be more expensive than where you're from. So recently I saw a can of San Pellegrino in a nice grocery store here in Medellin. It was like, I think, over the equivalent of $2 for a single can. I recognize it's expensive in the US as well, but this was just a 12-ounce can. And so if it comes to something that is specific to your home country that isn't local, and there's not say, a large local immigrant population where there are dedicated grocery stores, then you may expect to pay a premium for ingredients that otherwise would be quite affordable where you're from. When I think about this, the first thing that immediately comes to mind is cheese. Cheese is relatively affordable relative to incomes in the United States, but cheese everywhere else I go seems to, well, I should say everywhere else I go in Asia and then even in South America seems to be expensive. Next, the quality of your ingredients, what you can purchase locally is not going to be predictable like when you are from an area. So in my area, in my city where I'm from, I can tell you the good grocery stores, the good butchers, the good farmers markets, the places you can go to get good quality ingredients. And it may take you some time and cost you some money, but I know that area. But when I'm traveling, I don't know the area. I don't know who the local good butchers are. I don't know who the good local where the good local farmers markets are located. I don't know perhaps where some of the ethnic grocery stores might be that I can procure unique items. So even though I might be really interested in the idea of cooking and get really excited about the thrill of cooking something new, trying a new recipe, if the recipe that I'm interested in trying isn't a local recipe, isn't something that people in the area are making on a regular basis, and so the ingredients are fresh and in common supply, then It's definitely going to be disappointing if what I find isn't what I'm used to, but I attempt to make do anyway, and it simply doesn't taste the same. So that's another reason I don't really cook when I'm traveling abroad. I don't anticipate that even if I know the recipe, that I'll get the ingredients that I want. And that being said, my time is limited. So let's say I can find the ingredients in a given city. It might involve a half a day of traveling around a given city to multiple different grocery stores and making making do with perhaps subpar ingredients in some cases and paying a premium for it. And it becomes much more difficult than if you're in, let's say, a developed country and you can just order a few of the things online, and then maybe there's grocery delivery where you can select several of the ingredients from a local grocer, and then it becomes much faster. But when you are traveling in the developing world, and also when you're traveling, just broadly speaking, countries you're not familiar with, it's difficult to get that quality control down. You may luck out. You may find that in your situation it's very different than my experience. Please let us know down in the comments if there's a specific country you found that caters really well to people that like to cook, or if it's a city. I'm always interested to learn more about food in other countries. Just talking about this is making me a bit hungry, but moving on. So when it comes to variety, I'm a big fan of trying different restaurants and different cuisines, food, etc., and fruits and vegetables in other countries. And I find that unlike when cooking, I'm spending a lot of my time getting ready. With dining out, I find I can try a bigger variety of food in a shorter time frame. So if you think of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I know very few people that are capable of cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and even fewer that are going to do something like that on a regular basis. But when I am dining out, I can try a certain restaurant for breakfast, a different one for lunch, and a third one for dinner. And so that does allow me to explore certain kinds of cuisines and cultures more quickly, in my opinion. Now, of course, the alternative to this is cooking classes, and I think cooking classes can be really, really cool. I haven't tried one myself, but I'm definitely not going to put down the idea of taking a cooking class. If you're a chef or you're really interested in learning more about how different kinds of foods are prepared, then I think it could be really cool to have a cooking class. Of course, there's a difference between taking cooking classes and attempting to cook for yourself, but I'll leave that part up to you. That's your preference. I want to touch on my final point here as to why I don't like to cook when I'm traveling. This is just a me personal thing. So finally, I like to value my time at a certain monetary value per hour. And I tend to try to limit the amount of tasks that I do that I can spend money on to get that thing done for much less. So I'm not big on doing dishes. As much as I love cooking, I'm just not the biggest fan of doing dishes. I can do it. I'm not too cool to do dishes. That was actually one of my first real jobs, was washing dishes in a restaurant. But I find that when it comes to traveling abroad, it's like, okay, I can make dinner for $2 and spend an hour of time preparing it and cleaning up, or I can go get dinner for $5 or $6, maybe even $7 or $8. And sure, it'll cost more money, but when I think about the fact that I work really hard for my money and I'd like a break at the end of the day, especially for dinner, I don't mind the idea of cooking or fasting during the day as much, but for dinner, I really like to have a nice dinner most of the time when I'm traveling, if I can afford it. And having a really nice dinner and then having to do dishes afterwards can sometimes be a bit disappointing, or a bit of a downer when you just want to like relax and kick back, enjoy some good content online. And you've got to do this cleaning thing, not just your dishes, but you have to wait for your cooking ware to cool off. And that's another thing. So it's not just the cooking part, it is the totality of the circumstances that I think about when it comes to cooking while abroad. I haven't really felt like I missed out by not cooking for myself while traveling. I find that people in every country know how to make good food. And I've been able to find food that meets my satisfaction in every single country and city I've been to so far. Are some better than others? Sure, I think it's fair to say that larger metro areas are going to have a bigger variety and perhaps in some cases higher quality, depending on international uh, shipping of ingredients, like seafood, for example. If you have short flights to Japan, certainly that could improve your seafood situation. But that's a whole nother topic that I don't need to get into. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope this video has been helpful for you in terms of thinking about why you may or may not want to cook while you're